Hey guys, so today I'm going to be doing a review of Civilianized by Michael Anthony. I am so glad that I got the chance to read this one. It was fantastic. Before I get started with this review, I want to let you know that the content of this book deals with a number of difficult issues that might affect you, including drug and alcohol addiction or abuse, PTSD, depression, self-harm, and suicide. I'm going to forewarn you as well that some of the scenes of those things depicted in this book are pretty graphic, so you just need to make the decision for yourself whether you think this book is right for you or not. If you have any concerns about that, feel free to comment or message me here on YouTube, or you can find me on social media and message me there if you like. You know, before you go into reading this book for yourself, feel free to let me know and ask me, because I'm always happy to help with that. Suicide in particular is an issue that is unfortunately really close to my heart, as I'm sure it is for some of you guys as well, if not a lot of you. There's a stat in this book that says that 22 veterans commit suicide per day in the US, which is insane. That's a ridiculously high number, and it seems like, I know it's true for New Zealand, I'm not too sure about the rest of the world, but suicide rates are going up every year, which is extremely distressing and concerning. But as Michael himself has said, he says that sometimes people just want to know that they're not alone. So this book definitely contributes to that if you've ever felt this way, or if you are a veteran, that you're not alone and that other people go through this as well. Civilianized is Michael Anthony's memoir. He was a US Army medic and he was deployed to Iraq. This book covers the first 3 months or so of his return to the US. And I think that's really interesting that it covers his return home rather than his time over there. He has got another book, which I will talk about later, but this book, I just found it really interesting that it deals with coming home. The writing style is what I want to talk about first of all. It was fantastic, really well done. It was really simplistic, and just like Michael was like sitting down and telling you the story. It was very straightforward, but it was also still really powerful and had a lot of emotion in it. And as I said, it only takes place over a period of 3 months or so. The book is quite short, so obviously it is only really small snippets of his life throughout the time, but it still feels like one continuous story. There were also a few footnotes, I said that really weird, like really kiwi. There are also a few footnotes used throughout this book, and I say a few, like there's literally only a handful of them, like I want to say maybe like 7 or something around there, and they're just used to put in a fact or something that's related to the page that it's on, and they're used so sparingly, and I thought that was really effective because these stats hit you really hard. This book made me cry for sure, but it also made me laugh a few times, which I liked. I appreciated that it was a bit of both. The very first scene, he is trying to pick a fight with someone in a bar, and there's this moment where he's trying to tell the guy to get his hands off him, and he says, but not because I expected him to move his hand, but to expedite the confrontation. And I just thought that was so witty, and like, oh, it just reminded me of Jess from Gilmore Girls. It felt like something he would say, and that's like the highest compliment I can give someone, that they remind me of Jess from Gilmore Girls. But yeah, so I really like that like very witty sense of humor. He also goes to a pickup artistry workshop at some point in the story, you know, because he's been out of the dating scene for a while he was deployed. Honestly, for those of you who have never heard of pickup artistry as a concept, or like seduction or anything like that, I don't even know where to begin to explain it, because it's such a weird like thing. You know how there's all these things on the internet that are just like very specific, and if you're not part of it, you're like, what is that? Like, some people feel that way about BookTube. It's just one of those things where like, if you haven't looked into it at all, it's gonna sound really weird. But there's basically a community of guys out there, usually they're like pretty out there themselves, like out there they'll dress kind of weird, and I don't know, they always have some kind of like unique, memorable characteristic about them. Pretty much their mission is to teach other men how to successfully hit on women, but in the process it also teaches them some good like confident sort of life skills as well. There's so much more to it, and it really is like a weird and wonderful world of its own. So if you want to know more about that, I would suggest you pick up a book called The Game by Neil Strauss. Neil Strauss was like a really famous pickup artist, so I read that book and it was like this wild journey. So if you want to read that, I would highly recommend that one if you're more interested in the whole pickup artist thing. But Michael goes to a pickup artistry seminar thing, and that added a lot of humor to this book as well, because Michael is kind of like, what the, but it does sort of help him, I guess. As I said, it did make me cry as well. I was tearing up by page 12, and that was something that regularly reoccurred throughout the reading of this book. Mental health, of course, is a subject that Michael really delved into, especially PTSD, because that is what he ends up suffering from after having been in the war zone in Iraq. It does also explore depression as well, and one interesting thing that Michael said about depression was that he initially, because of his sort of, I guess, like lack of knowledge maybe, or lack of awareness, and that's why we need books like this to like build awareness about these issues. He initially didn't think that he was depressed at all, because he said he thinks of depressed people as being sad, and he didn't feel sad, he felt numb and felt like he didn't have any emotions and didn't care about anything because nothing mattered anymore. And he obviously, you know, in hindsight realizes that that is what depression is like for a lot of people, and I just found that a really interesting observation. Like I said, it's kind of about knowing that you're not alone and seeking help and finding some kind of purpose in your life as well. I feel the need to add at this point as well, because it is something that appealed to me, and I know that it will appeal to probably all of you guys because you guys are all readers as well, is that Michael Anthony is a super hardcore book nerd. He is so widely read, and books are something that frequently come up in his own book, and he name drops all of these books. So all the other ones that he was mentioning that I haven't read yet, I was taking it as like a personal recommendation that I need to go read those books, because I feel like he has really good taste. So I know that will appeal to a lot of you guys who like reading about people who like reading. It just makes him relatable. Overall, I would say that this book is pretty much a huge slap in the face about the reality of war and what it might be like to come back from that. There's one moment where he's saying how people say that they care while you've been and looked death in the face to defend them, but meanwhile they've been like sitting at home watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians or something. Like, just that real disconnect from having people say, you know, thank you for your service, but not really caring because they're just getting on with their lives and don't kind of realize the dark reality of what's going on. That's what really hit me the most about this book, because I'd never really thought about that before. I think he did an incredible job of sharing his experiences in order to tell a really moving and powerful and important story. Like I mentioned a bit earlier, Michael does have another book as well, and I think the other one came out first. It's called Mass Casualties, A Young Medic's True Story of Death, Deception and Dishonor in Iraq, and that's something that I didn't realize he had that book until I got to the end, because it's mentioned like in the epilogue. I was thinking throughout this book, like, I wish he had a book describing what happened over there, because he had a lot of very distinct views on that as well, and I was thinking like I'm really interested in what his experience was like. So I'm really glad that that book exists, and I'm definitely going to have to be reading it as well, because it sounds really, really interesting and equally as important as this one, I would say. I absolutely love this. One of the best autobiographies that I've ever read, and I gave it 5 stars. Cannot recommend enough. I think it's an important one for anyone to read, because things like war, whether we like it or not, they affect all of humanity. So yeah, highly recommend. If you have any questions about my thoughts on this, leave those linked down below, and if you're going to pick it up, let me know that. If you've already read it, let me know your thoughts on it as well. Links to where you can find this book will be down below, as well as like more information if you want to know more about this. Thank you guys for watching this video. I'll see you with another one in a couple of days. Bye.